Okay, the detective. Sit better for being a detective. You can't sit like that.
Not very ladylike.
No. Just sit nicely with your legs. No.
You're the director.
Well,
I
you're
trust you.
supposed to act a little more professional than that, Okay.
I'm not in the profession anymore.
Now, when you were a detective, what outfits did you wear to work?
Usually a button-up shirt, collared shirt, slacks.
A tie?
Yeah, I didn't like it, but that was very professional. And
But he had dry cleaning, so I never had to do his laundry.
Oh.
And then, you're only home for an hour, so he'd wear the same
unless
jeans.
you lived in Brookings again, because we don't have a dry cleaner anymore.
Oh, you'd have to do it.
the virtues of living in Salem,
I don't know
the
what
state
the
capital of Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
So you were one out of Salem, Oregon. Did you take any to the mental institution?
No, the court would deem them unfit, and then the bailiff deputies would do the transports.
When you talked to them, how long would it take you to realize they had mental issues?
I interviewed one lady who killed her neighbor, and it was 14 hours long.
What?
And she gave all these provable lies. She talked pretty much the entire time, and through the trial, we were able to prove all these things to be bogus. And I'm not trying to teach your viewers how to be better criminals, so understand that.
Didn't you make
'Cause I
up
don't do
a
that.
story for 14 hours? She made up a story?
Yeah.
And you believed her?
Well, not at all.
Oh.
She had dug a hole, a grave, a shallow grave,
Yeah.
in the backyard, and one of the family members of the lady who was murdered had called because they hadn't seen her mother for a long time.
Oh, my gosh.
A patrol deputy went over there, thought it was pretty suspicious, and then called the detectives. And
Did you have to undig her?
she was wrapped up in a shower curtain
Oh.
in her bedroom closet.
So she wasn't in the grave, but she
It was
a grave to
planning
make it
of
look
burying
like
her
her?
there.
Oh, she just.
But she got
Oh.
caught
Well,
halfway.
I've heard digging is hard to do. So that's why usually people are in shallow graves, because it's really hard to
And I will say
dig.
she was
That's
stabbed to
true.
death,
Oh.
and the suspect had cleaned up the kitchen area,
Yeah.
but it was one of those linoleum sticker tiles
Yeah.
you put every foot,
Oh, yeah.
and the blood had gone between the cracks.
Yeah.
Even though she had cleaned it,
You just had
in the
to lift
cracks,
the
those
hot
grooves,
thing up.
and when you walked in there, it smelled like a meat
Right.
shop,
The
a
blood.
butcher's store. You go into like a big box store
Oh my
and
God.
smell that, so you knew
Something
immediately.
Now, if he had used Clorox,
It was that
she.
woman.
Oh, if she'd used Clorox, I guess I wasn't listening.
Yeah,
You smell the Clorox smell, which was an obvious
Another
cover
giveaway.
up.
Oh.
So use all your senses when you're investigating these. And
When
it's
we're a
important that you
homicide.
document it in the report.
everything that you.
Smell,
She
see.
never did admit it, though, and they even had, her fingerprints on the inside of the tape on the woman, right?
Hmm
Where
Yeah.
is she now?
She got 25 years, and she's in the Oregon Women's Institution.
So
Oh.
she
In
didn't have
Salem.
to
Tell
go to
him what-
mental hospital. She
No.
actually got
Sentence.
Yeah. Tell them what the factors are for all
Oh.
the homicides.
Nearly every homicide I investigated are 5 vices:
Okay.
alcohol, drugs, gangs, prostitution, or gambling.
Whoa, that is all the vices.
Well,
right there.
write that down and never do it. Teach your children, don't ever do that.
Usually people who go to church every Sunday morning aren't the
ones who-
murderers or the murderees out there. They
Yeah.
live pretty boring lives.
Well, I remember when I was single and I said, "Come on, David, I know you know somebody you can hook me up with." And what did you say? Most of the people I deal with,
Yeah.
you wouldn't want.
And statistically speaking, according to the United States Department of Justice, 40% of all the people who kill other people are the people you love. They're your spouses, your fiance, your boyfriend, girlfriend.
Really?
The people who love you,
The stalker.
40% of them are the people who
That's
kill
why
you.
they look at the family
Mhm.
first when there's a
Yeah.
missing whatever.
It's not
dead.
the stranger jumping out of the bushes getting
Yeah.
you.
I'll be darned.
Who killed John Bonet?
I don't know.
Nobody knows.
You know,
Nobody
that's-
knows.
I wasn't privy to that
So
investigation.
you are not on any cold case files now that you're retired?
I got subpoenaed
Yeah.
2 weeks ago for a trial on the 8th of July.
Are you going?
Yeah.
I have to. I got subpoenaed.
Are you
They
going
put
to
us
get
up in a
paid?
really
Was
nice
that
hotel.
a cold case though? Because
No.
it's been how many years?
I've been
have you
retired
retired?
for years.
How are you going to
And
remember?
it was still pending.
No, it was a.
Like
They
retrial.
require a jury now to be. This was a kidnapping.
Oh gosh.
To be unanimous, and the conviction
Oh.
had, I think, 1 or 2 jurors who it wasn't unanimous.
So it was a hung. Was that a hung? That wasn't a hung jury.
No, but he's appealing on that grounds,
Oh.
and the appellate court said he can have
When
another
did that
trial.
law go into effect? Was that before?
Since the time I retired, apparently.
So that's why he gets another.
But
trial.
I've had, since retiring, having to go to Salem 3 or 4 times
Yeah.
for
Still.
homicides I investigated in the past, and I get $10 a day for witness
wow.
fees.
Oh,
But they do
wow.
put us up in a nice motel.
Yeah.
But Salem's not very far. You need a motel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're
3
gonna
hours.
get paid for a free motel, I'm gonna go stay in a
Oh.
motel.
Well, and
Alright.
they don't know for sure when he testifies, so he just has to be there like for 2 or 3
They have a
days,
series of
right?
witnesses, and you can't really plan exactly the hour.
Have you planned your outfit? What are you going to wear?
I always wear a white shirt, tie, and suit.
Oh,
for court.
yeah. The same boring thing.
Well,
Could
I have
we
a couple
go
suits
and watch
to.
you do
Yeah.
it? Oh, I want to go. When is it? July when?
July 8th, I think.
I'll just fly right
I have to
in.
look. I put it in my planner.
Yeah, you just found that out.
Are you?
like
Do you
this
get
week.
scared when you have to go to court?
No.
I've done it for
You know what to say?
28 and a half years.
He just answers the questions.
Honestly, if
They
you
ask
lie, you
questions.
don't have to remember the.
If you lie, your credibility never comes back.
When
so
we
never,
were
ever
first
lie.
married, he had to go to court in Eureka. I'm not saying any names, but she came out in the orange. He
Uh-huh.
arrested her.
Yeah.
Oh man, she wanted him so bad.
She wanted to hurt you.
No, she liked him.
Oh my gosh.
She came on to
Now
you.
And
I
I
was
stayed with my
sitting there-
wife. We've been happily married for 34 years.
Yeah.
Except for the time you held my hand coming out of church.
Well,
Because we came
not
out of
just
church.
that.
At the same time, my sister, my wife, and I thought Angela was my sister. And
My
reaching
wife.
down there.
Yeah, but
Oh,
you wanted-
Angela was my wife, which it
And I was
turned
walking
out.
behind him, and he put his hand back, thinking he's grabbing Amy. So I just grabbed
Walking
his
her down the
hand,
stairs of the church.
grabbed
Let's
his
go home.
hand, and walked. And then he
Well,
turned
I've
around and
seen
said,
the
"Get out of
work.
here."
I've seen David. It's a good thing he didn't like pat you on the bottom or
Yeah.
something.
Give a loving hug.
Well, you know what else he did though? So when we were dating, and then I went back to school, and Valentine's Day, I get this wonderful Valentine's box from him. It was so sweet. It had a red silk rose and a box of chocolates and all these sweet little Valentines from
And a
all the
card.
nieces and nephews
Oh.
and a card. And then a couple years later in that same ward, they're talking about all these, you know. And I said, oh, the most wonderful gift I ever got from my husband. And I look at him and
Was
he's
my
going,
boyfriend.
I know, I said, he was you. And I look over at him and he's going,
Deer in the
I
headlights.
said, it was from Angie Webb.
I owe my proposal and wedding
Wonderful Valentine's
due to my
gift
loving
ever
sister.
was from my sister-in-law.
we had to win her over. And get
It worked. She's trapped.
How come I didn't know that story? I was probably there.
Well, your kids
Yeah.
had
I
Valentine's
probably
in there.
wrote one of the letters in there.
It was from all the nieces and
Oh my
nephews. They
God.
were
Very
all
sweet.
little, and they.
Well, it worked.
Thank you,
Angie,
Angela.
Yeah, okay, okay.
I did find out, but it was after we were married.
Yeah.
And I was
Uh-huh.
saying, oh, I just had to tell him about my best Valentine's gift ever. And he's just looking at me like, what
I
are you
don't
talking
remember.
I
about?
mean, you didn't even know Angie did it.
Not until I looked at him. And he's looking
I
at
had
me like-
forgotten about it.
He's just
It
going,
was
huh?
sweet.
I said, oh my gosh, it was from Angie, wasn't it? And he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, all right.
Did
That's
you
a funny
copy me
story.
then the next year and do it yourself?
No.
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 David, I
It was a
trying to be
one-time
good-
thing for my sweet, sweet sister.
I was
Yeah.
trying to be a good example to you. That's what you're supposed to do every year.
You should write a book or, hey, do a program on how to win your sweetheart.
All right, that's a good
Write
idea.
letters to the rural life.
All right.
Ask your sister to write your girlfriend.
So when you do, now this to me sounds like a dream job.
What?
Searching people's houses.
I'd like
How
that.
many
Oh.
searchings did you get to do?
Every week.
Did you
Really?
love it?
You get filthy from all their.
You wear gloves.
You do wear gloves, but you're sweaty.
Are they?
It's confined. You're having to look in the dirtiest, nasty houses.
Can you
Well,
tell
aren't
them?
they nice houses? On TV, they're nice houses.
Only in the detective books.
So, what was the best thing you ever found in a search of a house?
You got to tell them about. Can I tell them?
No.
So
There's
funny.
Some things
I
I we,
can't tell.
yeah, it's just out of respect of people.
All right,
They
so
deserve their
the
privacy.
HEPA, you have the HEPA code with being a cop?
It's not HIPAA,
It's not HIPAA.
HIPAA or HEPA?
but there was a
Yes,
law enforcement code of
HIPAA.
ethics.
Well, yeah, because HIPAA's health and FERPA's
Yeah.
education.
But just out of the kindness and duty, I respect those people still to the day.
Well, one time I remember a person accused David of stealing their money. They had $2.50, and they thought David took it. And what did you tell him?
I don't
I'm
remember the
not
story.
going to lose my job over $2.50.
Yeah,
I did
true.
not steal your money. But I used to go on ride-alongs with David when he was the police officer.
a patrol deputy.
Patrol deputy in our Brookings town, and that was educational.
And on this, we were just talking about this before going on camera. We had a hot call of a bar fight at the Pine Cone.
Yes, right there.
yeah,
The same
bar.
place that my car got rear-ended that time. The Volkswagen
Yeah.
got. It's the same place, parking place.
So there's very few law enforcement officers on duty any one time in this small community. So we were backing up the city police officer, us being with the county, and then of course state police, they show up, and so
Everybody was
you don't want to be by yourself in a room full of angry drunk people. So I go zipping in there, and I told Angela
Stay in the car.
in the front passenger seat, stay in the car, don't get out.
Yeah.
So
I didn't. I
yeah.
obeyed.
I go running in there. The engine's still running. The lights are rolling. I turned off the siren. And I go take care of business with the officer and the trooper.
And while I was sitting there,
A guy opened up the driver's door and got inside
In.
the driver's seat. And what did Angela say?
you better not do it. And he looked over at me surprised. He didn't know I was in there.
And he opened the door and he got out. And I had no
ran.
idea what had happened until I got back into the squad car to drive away.
Now, if
So
I hadn't
don't
have
mess
been
with
there,
Angela.
Were you scared? I would have been
It didn't
scared.
sound
no,
like he was
I was shocked.
He was
so
gonna steal the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
If I hadn't have been there, David would have come out with
I
no
wish
car.
I could
And
His face.
a couple years earlier, we had a trooper, same thing, had his car stolen.
Oh my god.
Were your keys in the car?
Yeah, but if Angela wasn't with
Well,
me,
sure,
I
sure.
would have turned the car off
Of
and
course,
the lights off
of
and
course.
locked the car and gone in.
Yeah, but
I was
she
his
was-
backup.
Well, and the
You did a good job.
person didn't know you didn't have a gun.
Well, and then another
Goodness.
time we
They might
went.
have thought you were a policeman.
Yeah.
woman.
They probably did. They were scared of
I
me.
bet that's
They didn't
it.
know you were.
Well, what did you say?
scared.
You said don't do that.
I said you better not do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all you
You've
have.
always had my
you
back.
have to kind of be like a mother and be stern. You better not do it. Lower your voice. That's how you do
Do
it.
not kidnap me.
But one time we also went to a domestic violence house. They were fighting, the two drunks. And so we went in there, and I was David's backup that time. I don't remember another officer. They haven't get there yet.
Back in the day,
Right.
you went in by yourself.
Well, she was going to get arrested and go away, not the guy.
Oh.
But she wanted to get makeup on. She thought I was important.
It wasn't
And-
mother.
Yeah. And she goes, please just let me get some makeup on before we leave, Well, I had to go in the room with her while she
so she
changed
would-
her clothes.
Oh yeah.
So then I let her get some makeup on because she needed it. She looked bad. So I went, and then I told David later, I let her.
Mugshot.
He goes, why did you let her do that? She could have escaped. I was a horrible deputy because
I don't think
let
I
her.
placed her under arrest at that point or told her.
So
Got all that
anyway,
makeup on for nothing.
yeah, her mug shop was a little
I was
better,
gonna say.
good because of me.
I'll tell you a crazy story.
Okay.
We lived outside the city of Staten on a kind of gentleman's farm, and
Wait, is a gentleman's farm like
a small farm out in the
like,
farmland.
a lady of the night's house?
No.
No,
Oh,
it's
okay.
where we lived.
We had a nice little orchard of 44 fruit trees along the river. Is beautiful. But I chose this area because it had probably the lowest crime in the entire Willamette Valley. And in the church congregation I went to, nobody got paid. Everybody were volunteers. And my job was to help the missionary effort as far as reaching out to people, inviting them to come to church. And we had an annual chili feed where there was a contest of who could make the best chili.
Did you make some?
I got second place
Oh.
like 8 years in a row.
Whoa.
And
Well,
I,
are you
got
making that
birthday.
tonight for it? Tomorrow? For
tomorrow
us?
I could do that. I make great
We'll
chili.
wait until you guys are on your way out.
But it was only the year that we moved from there that I actually got one first place.
Oh.
So we're at the church gymnasium, and I'm grumbling. I'm belly aching to myself that I got second place again. 7, 8 years in a row. And these volunteer members, the missionaries, they come by and they introduce this family that are interested in coming to church. And I was, woe is me, thinking, I'm never going to get first place. Glad to meet you. Have a good day. And, they go off and do their stuff. And I know they're coming to church and investigating it. And a couple weeks later, Jason Hess. And remember, this is Staten. It's like the safest community in the world. The only thing they do is they write tickets for parking on the wrong side of the road. That's the only thing that
Your
happens
biggest crime.
in this community.
Back then, anyway. I
Yeah.
think it's getting a little.
But they're really into public relations. So when you walk into the lobby of the Staten Police Department, you see the FBI's 10 most wanted people there. And, there's no reason for that other than to have, public relations.
Right.
So one of the officers, when I was working patrol, I would back him up and he would back me up from the city, Jason Hess. I see him on my way home and pull over and we chit-chat and he says, "That's crazy what happened at your church." And I'm going,
Second
Jake-
place winner?
Jason, what's going on? No, that guy who turned himself in, being one of the FBI's most wanted. I'm going, what are you talking about? He names his name, and he worked for the cartel in a different country, had killed a police officer in this country and other people, landed in Los Angeles, had committed a murder or two down there.
Gosh.
And, he ended up in Staten, Oregon.
Oh, no.
And he was on the FBI's most wanted list. And, in talking to these ministers, learning about the gospel of Jesus Christ, he said, "I think I should tell you, I'm actually this person and I'm wanted in this
He
foreign
confessed.
country and in Los Angeles."
Oh.
And they know they're a leader for the congregations, a detective, a homicide detective. So they don't want to tell me about it because, they know what's going to happen. I'm going to slap the cuffs on them. So they reach out to the higher up and this guy says, well, if he's truly converted, he needs to own up and pay for his sins in this life
Yeah.
and not the hereafter. So this guy, he got a brand new t-shirt and got these fabric markers and wrote, "I love Jesus Christ and the church is true and I love the Bible," all these things on the shirt, and goes with these missionaries, the church elders, down to Staten Police Department and
turn
says,
himself
"That's
in.
me," and they
Oh
run his
my
prints,
gosh.
and
David, I never heard
he
that
got sent to
story.
prison. And he's paying
Forever.
for his sins
Wow.
in this life and not the hereafter.
Wow.
So I have heard some and experienced some crazy things,
That
but
does-
that's pretty powerful as far as
Yeah.
what a transformation of the gospel
International.
can make in a person's life.
Wow.
Wow, that's true.
Did you tell Mother and Dad that story?
I think he did.
Because, they would have
Dad
been...
would love that.
Dad would have just been bragging about you.
True
every night.
story.
So then, back to the searching of the houses. Did you put things back that you got out?
No. We were
You
supposed
made a
to.
mess.
No, you didn't try to make a mess, but you never, I'm very organized as far as how I have
Yeah.
everything lined up in my
He's
drawers.
OCD.
Yeah.
A little bit.
With his stuff.
By
yeah.
the
A lot
book,
of it.
there has to be order and everything.
But a lot of cops.
But you're
are.
not going to take time to, fold someone's top and lay it in there exactly. You're just going through there. Is there a gun there? Is there drugs there?
All right. If you were going to search my house.
I would call up every officer I knew within the state of Wyoming and say, I will owe you for the rest of my life.
Please come help me.
Yeah.
What would it look like when you were done? Would it be
Your drawers would all be pushed in, but everything inside would be disheveled.
okay? What about my shoes, though?
Well, if it's drug related, we're going to have a canine
Yeah.
who alerts on drugs.
Oh, and they
Go in
always
there.
say, "Tell us where it is first." And
Their noses are phenomenal. And cadaver
works.
dogs, we
Yeah.
worked with a team of 2 cadaver dogs. And we had this family, another crazy story. They had this skull, a human skull. And the story was great granddaddy's so-and-so during this charge in the Civil War
Oh my
lopped
gosh.
off this officer's head, whether it be for the Confederacy or
Yeah.
the Union.
So
I
they
don't
got
know.
handed down
But
through
yeah, as a
generations.
trophy, and this family from 20 years ago has come to the sheriff's office and they said, we don't think we should have this human skull anymore. So they booked into evidence, and my partner said, hey, let's do this experiment. Let's go up in the woods and set this skull behind a log
And see if
out in the
someone brings it
brush
to you.
and bring in these cadaver dogs, and they went straight to
They
it
did?
within seconds.
wow,
And
It was the
200 years ago.
Weirdest thing I had ever seen in my life. They had the scent like
There's
that.
not even any flesh on it.
yeah. And
It was crazy.
Plus, you'd think you'd have all the smells of all the people through
Oh,
all the years
yeah. I
and
mean,
places.
the-
But we would have people pretty regularly, be missing during deer hunts or tell a loved one they were going up in the woods to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And we always brought those dogs up and they'd go from where their car or truck was abandoned, 100, 200
Straight
yards,
to it.
right to the body.
Wow.
What kind of dogs?
Brown ones. I
German shepherds.
wasn't a canine handler ever.
On
Brown
TV.
dogs.
They're probably a lab or
Big brown dogs.
yeah. Their tongues did that. Ears drooped.
But the guys with the dogs, they live with them.
2 ladies. Yeah, they lived
Oh,
with
they were
them.
ladies.
Mhm.
All right, now the next big question: psychics. Did they ever solve any homicide detective work?
Every time you had a case where it wasn't immediately solved or you never identified the suspect, you'd reach out to the public saying, do you know anything about this homicide that took place at this
Call us
location,
at
They
this
this
come out
date?
of the woodwork.
The kooks would come out. And especially, if you had someone, catch a glimpse of the suspect, you'd bring in Salem PD, had a reconstruction artist, and they drew every time Aunt B or Uncle Joe. And so you would
They all
get
looked alike.
all these people, and yeah, they looked like that person. And we narrowed it down to, 500 people. You spent so much time
What a
chasing down
waste
these
of
red
time.
herrings
Oh my
that
gosh.
we didn't really want to put that out because it gave us so
Psychics.
many false
So,
leads.
did any psychics solve a case?
Never.
Never. All right. Then, what about bodies in the water? Do they look like a real body coming out?
Was it Rob? I was telling you we had this. It was kind of interesting. This chart, and it said there's a line for daytime temperature, a line for water temperature, and a body when it goes in the water, unless it has a flotation device, will sink oftentimes like a stone, and it's only when the bubbles decomposing in your bloodstream start bubbling up that you rise to the
Start
surface.
raising up.
And so we had this chart we'd refer to, and it was within the day
Really
as far as air
true.
temperature, water temperature, and whether the person was skinny, medium build, or heavy set. It drew the line right to it, and it was
That's
very
weird.
close.
Wow.
So that was a great resource. And they have different universities that do with studies on
experiments.
decomposition. And I was a good acquaintance with the state medical examiner, Karen Gunson. And I mean, this lady was board certified, was the best in Oregon, probably the Western United States. And she said, the bodies that are dead they can do weird things, and there's no 100% guaranteed X, Y, and Z is going to happen or ABC.
Yeah.
And she said, you tell me the time when this person was last seen, and tell me when they were discovered dead, and I'll give you the time frame of when the death took place.
Oh my God.
So I mean, even for an expert like this, she could only name it within the time frame.
Wow.
So you couldn't tell. For sure.
And then the initial officer or deputy or detective showing up had a lot better gauge as far as time of death, because seeing livor mortis and rigor mortis and, you know, blood pooling and drying, had a much better idea than what a pathologist could say 2 or 3 days later.
Wow.
So it was important to document what you saw at the crime scene.
That's what makes a good detective, though, is noticing little.
And that's just it. You know,
things, you know.
it's a pretty competitive thing to get into. As far as we had the HART team, the Homicide Assault Response Team, and you really had to know your stuff, because they took the best detectives of every agency and kind of made them a varsity squad to do these kind of investigations over the Willamette Valley.
Did you ever want to be on the SWAT team?
I was a negotiator, a hostage negotiator.
Whoa.
So I did that and went to
Did
training.
you talk them out every time?
No. What was frustrating, we would roll up in the armored car. It was a pretty thing, and we would sit behind the mic.
Yeah.
But, you know, from the initial contact the deputy had where he was shot at, or the person took hostages, or they were suicidal and ducked into the house, you never had sometimes enough time to form a perimeter.
Yeah.
And people would run out the back door into the brush.
Oh.
And so more often than not, I would be in the armored car saying, this is the Marion County Sheriff's Office. Come out now. We're going to introduce gas in 15 minutes.
He's already in the bushes.
And it's an empty house. You're talking to nobody except for the SWAT guys on the perimeter.
Well, that was a good practice.
He recognizes, though. One time we were on our way to church and we drove by this house and I was like, oh, something's going on. And he said, that's a homicide.
Oh,
And we
you-
found out later
just by
it was
looking out
He
who
could
was
just
there.
tell.
Uniformed deputy doing security
Yeah.
and then plain
And
clothes.
then same thing, remember when that guy he ran over someone at the casino and then he went to the pot shop and killed the clerk there and he went and got
yeah.
bullets and kidnapped a girl
I
and
remember reading about that.
we drove
Drugs,
by.
alcohol, gambling,
Yeah.
prostitution gangs.
Yeah.
Bad.
I think we should talk about the fact that David taught others how to interrogate. He was really, really good at interrogation, his reputation. And I think it was because he was kind to them.
And that's just that you meet these people at the worst moment of their lives. And, before they committed this homicide, they were probably pretty decent people. They just made the worst mistake of their life. And so it's not good cop, bad cop. You want to go in there with good cop, that, you're not getting out of this situation. There's no going back in a time machine to fix this. We've got to deal with the issue right now. And so you'd sit down and, try as you might, this isn't going away when you wake up tomorrow. So
How did you learn that technique, though? Did you just develop it with experience?
the Marion County Sheriff's Office was really progressive that they sent us to homicide schools, University of Kentucky. I went to a long one there. Went to one in Portland State. They put resources into you that you were trained up in how to be a good detective.
Yeah, they were
And
progressive.
you learned from the best.
I was going to say, and David was also diligent about seeking those out.
Some of our teachers, I know one was a guy who ran the homicide division of New York City. Another guy was in charge of the Louisiana State Patrol criminal unit.
Tell them about the New York guy's experience with that.
So yeah, here's another neat story. This New York officer in charge of the homicide division for the city, I'm not sure what rank he was, whether he was a homicide sergeant or lieutenant or commander, whatever. But there was this fiction writer who wrote true crime stories. I don't remember his name, but he palled around with this guy's unit, and after work he would take him to the bar and buy the beers, and he would just these writers in true crime stories, a lot of it's based off of stuff that actually happened.
Yeah.
And they just rewrite the story to fit what they like. And this guy was found murdered in his apartment in New York. This writer.
Oh, the
And-
writer was?
Yeah, glass was broken in the back door.
Oh.
It was opened, and he was shot right there in his living room on his couch. No gun around, and having this relationship with this writer that was their friend, they put tons of overtime casing the neighborhood, talking to the neighbors, going into the bars, seeing if people knew anything about this guy's murder. And it was just went on for a year or two where it was unsolved, a real whodunit.
Wow.
Well, the state, the probate took care of that, and the family, they sold off the apartment. It was a nice one. And the new owners, they hired a chimney sweep.
Oh, no.
And this guy finds a bolt up in the chimney with all these inner tubes cut and tied off. And he had bolted the very end of this big, long, stretched out inner tube rubber band device to a .38 revolver.
He shot himself?
He shot himself.
No
And then
way.
the gun snapped up into the chimney.
Oh, my God.
And it was like, he had cancer. And it was like
Oh.
the practical joke that he,
I got
to
the
his,
last
to his
story.
squad, that they were going to put in all this work and effort
Oh
to
my
solve my
God.
homicide.
Oh, my
And it was really a
gosh.
suicide.
Oh.
I have never heard that before. That's
So
amazing.
they taught us to look for every angle,
Everything.
what to expect. And like I said, the
Oh.
training paid off because we were a really sharp squad. There were, I think, 2 unsolved homicides we had in my 17 years there that I worked, whereas the lead.
All right.
That's
Was there any scene that you had to leave because you got sick of the blood and the guts or whatever?
No, I got my start off in California as a patrol deputy, and there you're not only a deputy sheriff, you're also a deputy coroner.
You've seen
So
it
I had to
all.
go to coroner school
Do autopsy.
and do autopsies. I've seen so many autopsies in my
Oh.
life
Well, he said
and
those-
helped out.
He said those guys that do them, they'd be
They
eating
get
a
sick,
sandwich.
too?
No, eating a sandwich while they're doing
It was nothing
Yeah,
for
and
these
David's like,
pathologists.
"What?"
But you do get used to it. I know I had an explosive device that killed a couple people, and it was a lady. She's a great detective to this day, but she was brand new. It was like the first week on the job, and we're sorting people out, and she got sick and had to leave the room.
Wow.
Is it true they put mentholatum in their nose if it stinks?
I never, but I know of detectives who've done that.
Oh. Well, what about Casey Anthony's story?
Like that?
You know, I
He
will
doesn't
tell you,
follow that stuff.
as a detective working law enforcement, when I came home, I did not watch any cop shows. I
Yeah.
care about any
And
news.
people give him books.
It's
Of,
like a bus.
True crime books.
yeah, like
It's
he's
like
gonna
that's the
read it.
last thing in my life I want to spend time on. I put that life way back
You
when I
don't read
retired.
it.
We'll watch
I've seen
something-
enough.
We'll watch something and it'll be like, that would never happen.
Oh, and she loves the gore.
I don't love the gore, but I do. I've
True
read
crime.
and rule.
I like to find
Well,
out who did it.
Yeah,
And then I like to
and
think
why?
why.
But
Why?
I have had it
Why?
up to there.
Yeah. Well,
And I think it's healthy because, working homicides is an important job, but it's not a very happy job.
no, and it's not real for us. We're watching it kind of on TV.
Yeah.
Even I like to watch more of the court cases. I love to see how they bring the facts out. So I like court cases, what I like more than anything. But it still isn't real for us. When you're on the street and you're seeing these things, it is sad. Somebody just lost somebody. Somebody ruined their life. On both
It's not a
sides.
happy time, yeah.
Oh, have you had to tell people their loved one was dead?
Yeah.
Oh,
How's
well,
that?
I
And-
didn't do that. That's horrible.
And I will tell you that, like Carolyn said, the work really destroys a lot of good men and women.
Yeah.
And I found that, whether you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Baptists, Catholics, we had all sorts of people in our detective unit who were religious, and they fared way better than the mental health of those people who had no attachment to
Didn't
any kind of
believe in
church
anything,
or
yeah.
temple or mosque. Although I've only known one Muslim police officer in my 28 years
Oh,
on the
they,
job.
They didn't live in
Well, it's
Salem.
probably because we live in Oregon,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Representative of the population.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
was a squared away individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, being grounded in a faith and a religion really kept you above the mess.
Yeah. Well, centered,
Mhm.
because you know there's more than just this life.
Yeah.
And so, as awful as it is, you understand more about what the big picture is.
Compassion and
Yeah.
love, those are important attributes
Yeah.
to have as a
Exactly.
detective.
All right, but in the Casey Anthony thing, I'll
We're
tell
back to
you
that.
what
Yeah.
it is. That the dad used to be in the detective homicide, whatever law force he was doing. But when he smelled the trunk of the car, he said human remains smell. Do you know the human remains smell?
Oh,
And
yeah.
you'll
Oh,
never
yeah.
forget
You
it.
never forget it, they say.
Very few homicides happen when I was there at the scene.
So you would believe him. It doesn't smell like garbage. It really was human remains smell if he said it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, I've been at scenes of shootings where I've seen people shot or, been there minutes afterwards
It
Yeah.
still
as far as
smells like
responding. And I mean, you don't have the smell the iron smell.
Yeah.
Oh.
The blood
I could
smell.
smell like that. And like I said, that one case where I went into this woman's house and everything was clean, but you could still smell the meat smell.
Oh, yeah.
How would you like to have Shane? That was a bad. Our son Shane is a code enforcement officer, so he's had to go into these homes because someone called on them because they were inhabitable and people are living there.
And the smell.
there's
and the,
people that they're not just hoarders. They're I think it's a mental illness, but
Uh-huh.
it's just so bad. And there would be kids living in there, and they're literally rats running through the house, and the toilets haven't worked in years,
And they still
things like
use
that,
them.
and they still live there. So he would have to. The first few times he had to go in and do that, he was like out the front door and vomiting because you have to breathe through your mouth, and then you find out there's little kids living here, and this
All
is
the
like
time.
Mhm.
nobody should be living in this. And he would have to get the. Well, you probably had to too get DHS or the Children's
yeah.
Services to take these kids out of here because nobody should live like that. I think that would be the worst thing is you having to deal with families and little children, and I mean the other stuff is horrible.
Children being murdered.
Yeah, that's
That
gotta be
happens.
the worst. I would think.
And I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from a law enforcement career. I'm just saying we need to have good people in those positions.
Yeah.
And again, I truly believe the gospel of Jesus Christ squares you up to where you handle it better than anything else you could have.
Good point.
all right. So
Thank you, Angela, for the interview.
it's not over
I loved
yet.
every minute of
It's
it.
not.
It might be.
Tell them about the.
That was a good
what
note to
happened.
end on.
My wife loves this one patrol story.
Well, I love a lot, but this one you'll tell.
We lived up in the woods, and it was a very nice place up in the woods because there was one road in and one road out.
So safe.
But
we were the only ones there.
Yeah.
it was a nice road before we moved there for the dopers
Yeah.
to go in there and shoot up or
Oh.
get
Pull
high
out right there
because
by
you
the
see the
house.
cops coming from 2 miles away.
So people didn't know the dopers moved away and that you moved in.
Well,
Yeah,
they figured
yeah,
it-
they
figured it
did.
out. They did figure it out.
So I'm going home for lunch, and there's dopers I recognize there, and I come around the corner and roll right in there and stop and jump out, and sure enough, they're using marijuana. And
Yeah.
back at the start of my career, marijuana used to be illegal. Times have changed.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But there's a small amount, and it was a very ornate, beautiful marble pipe.
oh,
I mean, it was
It's like
Work
the
of
craftsmanship
art.
was very elect.
uh-huh.
And, I was taught in the police academy, a police officer has the ability to overburden the courts.
Oh, yeah.
So the more you're able to handle things at the neighborhood level, the better where you're not jammed up the courts with a lot of minor
Yeah.
superfluous stuff.
Yeah.
So I gave these two guys the option. I could book this into evidence and, scrape out the residue, test it in the marijuana kit, and get you the misdemeanor. Or you could just give me that little bag of marijuana and I'll shake it out and we could just get rid of this pipe. And so, they're going to choose, I don't want another arrest on my 60 or 70 cycle arrests throughout my life. So they chose that option. I did the sprinkle of the marijuana shake out on the ground. And we lived in this beautiful field of blackberries. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Oregon or California blackberries, but they're green barbed wire. And this went out for 100 yards on either side of the road, maybe 200 yards. And I didn't think anything of it. And I gave it a chuck like that into the blackberries. And the guy's complaining, oh, that's like my grandfather's marijuana pipe
What? You got a grandpa
that he
that's
carved when he was 15
Yeah.
back in the 1930s, you know.
Nobody had marijuana back then.
Yeah, well, they had it in the ditch weed they were smoking. And he was kind of bent over that. But I said, hey, I'm not arresting you. Look at the good side. And off I went to go get a sandwich at home. Well, the next day, I go to work and down the 2-mile long driveway I have to the highway. And these two clowns are out there.
What?
Alongside the road where we were at just yesterday. And this blackberry patch, it's cut down to the nub. I mean, I'm talking a quarter, maybe a half inch from the dirt. And there's this giant bonfire looking device pile that's not on fire yet. But they have like 40 yards of blackberries, a circle
Cleared.
going out into the brush line.
Just to look for that.
And it's all brown dirt. And they're out there with their shears cutting ground level, taking each cane of blackberry away, looking for grandpa's or great grandpa's marble marijuana pipe. And if they found it, great, good for them. They earned that free one.
That was one way to get some yard work.
I just
done.
waited to drove on by.
Oh my God.
I don't know if they found it or not, but boy, they're landscapers.
We should find them over now.
I highly recommend them if you need some yard work done.
Just
Happy Camp, California.
throw a nice pipe out in them.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. Oh my God.
They'll work for pipes.
Well, they really wanted that.
They
back,
really
though.
wanted it.
It was a
back.
family heirloom. I'm sure it's been passed on to great-great-grandson by now.
I bet you their family are the ones that said, you go out there and do that.
It's sacred.
This is a tradition in
Let's
our
not have you
family.
do that again.
What did you
They
say?
probably said, "Dude, don't ever do that again."
Oh my gosh.
All right. If you weren't a cop, what choice of career would you be?
Oh,
I
boy.
thought about that. And you know, you always think the grass is greener
Yeah.
on the other side. And if you had a time machine, what do-overs would you do? And I would probably make them. And I thought, you know, I paid a lot in my career because I've worked so many hours of overtime. And we would go to the movies and take two cars because inevitably
Oh.
my pager, my
We
cell
went- in
phone.
Happy Camp once, we went grocery shopping and he was like, hey, that guy's got an arrest warrant. And he left me.
So
And
you
the
can
co-
go get
He
it.
walked the guy to the station and left me. I'm like,
And there's
That's
no
Pretty gung-ho in my
tax.
he
career.
wouldn't do that. Not at the, he didn't do that like once we moved. But
Yeah.
at the beginning of his career, he did.
But we would be I remember a police officer's Christmas banquet.
Oh, well.
Where there was just like a Tom Clancy movie. I don't remember which
Yeah.
one, but 20 pagers go
I
off.
remember which one.
Oh
At-
my
at the-
gosh,
the
you're all
same
there and it's
time.
like,
Yeah,
And-
they all left.
And they all left, and it was
Must
a
have been
multiple homicide.
Yeah,
well,
must
it
have
was the
been.
bombing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But as far as another career, I thought, you know, if I got in, I think today, energy as far as being a lineman for electrical towers, working as a roughneck on an oil well, being a miner.
You do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you always say, I should have been a doctor.
I should have been a doctor.
he always says
I
that.
was afraid of student debt. You know, our
Oh,
parents
yeah.
said going into debt's a bad thing.
Yeah.
You have Scottish roots. Scots are thrifty. They save money. You never, ever, ever do debt. I may have gotten student loans and put myself through medical school if I had a do-over.
Yeah.
But probably one of those four fields.
Do you want to tell how you paid for your
No.
police
I do not.
We can talk about it now.
No, I don't
No.
think we should.
We've got a statue of limitations.
It
We're
wasn't.
really gonna.
It wasn't.
No.
It wasn't a big
We-
deal.
We're really
we-
gonna
it
wonder.
really
We
wasn't.
don't
We-
tell it.
We have lines we don't cross.
It wasn't a criminal act.
Remember our last video? We had to make some changes.
Yes,
Let's not
okay.
open some Pandora boxes.
It's not criminal though.
It's
It
not
wasn't
criminal.
No,
It was
it
just
was.
It wasn't
funny.
even.
It was funny.
It was innocent.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. I think
Yeah.
we should say goodnight, everybody.
All
Thank you,
right.
my-
We might have to do a part 2.
I know. Yeah.
Because I'm in.
We'll see how people like this.
That's right. We got to see if my subscribers goes up. Because I'll give you time to hit the like. I'm not going to shut it off. Because you know when sometimes you want to push like and it's gone and I didn't have time to do it.
I go back.
Though.
I go back.
Do it
Go
now.
back and look for it.
Night, night.